Welcome to rilopost.com's presentation of Lost Worlds of the Atlantic, Part 1, Middle Earth. Most in the civilized world know Plato's story of Atlantis. Some believe it actually existed, some do not. Almost as many know Tolkien's stories of Middle Earth, though most of them believe it all to be pure fiction. Avid Tolkien fans, however, know that he always said Middle Earth was a real place from very long ago, and that it was the setting of the ancient Norse folk tales which he studied and preserved. Among these avid fans, many believe that Plato's lost city of Atlantis and Tolkien's city of Numenor are actually one and the same. Plato gave us a vague description of the directions to Atlantis, but Tolkien gave us maps. These maps, drawn from the descriptions in the ancient tales, provide a picture of the lands with specifically shaped geographic features, and with the layout of those landmarks and their relative positioning to one another. We begin with a split screen, one of Tolkien's maps of Middle Earth on the left, and on the right, a Google map of the ocean floor just west of Portugal, Spain, and France, and south of the UK. The most obvious feature on the Tolkien map is Mordor, a nation-sized patch of land enclosed by a ring of mountains. On the right, on the Google map, there is an area that is very similar. Specifically, the Tolkien map shows a smaller ring of mountains on the northwest corner of the larger ring, and there on the Google map is the same feature in the same place. The Tolkien map also shows a couple of passes and an askew mountain along the west wall. So does the Google map on the right. On the Tolkien map, on the south wall, there is a noticeable droop near the southeast corner, and there also on the Google map is the same feature. Remember, this map was drawn from descriptions, and yet it is closer in similarity to this area than early maps of the New World were to North America, and those map makers were on the ships that explored it. Although the unique shape and similar features of the Mordor on the Google map compared to Tolkien's could be enough alone to justify further investigation, if we look at some of the features that are outside of Mordor and check their positions relative to Mordor and to each other, it makes the case much stronger. From Udun, the smaller ring of mountains on the northwest corner, if you move northwest a short distance, you come to Emin Muil and the falls at Rhoros. On the Google map, a similar stand of mountains sits at the same relative position. Again from Udun, move north about twice the width of Mordor, and you come to Ered Mithrin and the Grey Mountains, a small mountain range moving from west to east and opening like two outstretched fingers. The same basic feature sits in the same relative position on the Google map. And again from Udun, move east-northeast and you come to the Sea of Rhûn and the three-cornered forest that sits behind it. On the Google map, you won't be able to see the lake bed that would be filled with sediment, but you can see the three-lobed canyon behind it. This canyon is shaped very much like the forest on the map used in the movie. It also provides a logical reason for why the forest was shaped like that. Either the canyon walls were too steep or rocky for tree growth, or the ice age happening on the continent above was above the tree line. The only features on the Tolkien map that are not easily apparent on the Google map are the two mountain ranges, one curving from north to south down the center of Middle Earth, the other running westward from Mordor across the south. On the Google map, it looks like it might be a mountain range curving down the center and across the south, but without ocean depths, it isn't certain. I found a map of the ocean that does show depth as meters below sea level at www.arcgis.com. On this map, the relief is slightly more apparent, and by zooming in on most areas, you can find depth readings. I found that the differences between the ridges and the lowlands on either side were between 2,000 and 4,000 meters. Definitely mountains. The range running across the south is slightly smaller, but still mountains. And they sit right where Tolkien's map said they would. The only real problems are these mountains coming off the southwest corner of Mordor and the mid-Atlantic ridge, both of which are on the Google map but do not show up on Tolkien's map. As far as the mountains coming off the southwest corner go, those seem to have been in an area intentionally drawn as a vague, remote area about which they had no descriptions. Remember, if it hadn't appeared in one of the tales, they wouldn't have known what was there. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is different. The Tolkien map shows a sea to be west of Middle-earth, not a mountain range. This situation is discussed in more detail in Part 3, the geology. The main thrust of this post and the accompanying video is that a comparison of the details on Tolkien's map of Middle-earth to the features on the Google map shows too many similarities to be coincidental. Therefore, the only reasonable explanations are either that this site is the site of the real Middle-earth, or that this site is the site used by the Tolkiens as the setting for Middle-earth in their novels, or that the author, J.R.R. Tolkien, produced the maps from his imagination, in which case I would consider him to be a psychic who could rival the famous Edgar Cayce. Personally, I believe this is the site of Middle-earth. I don't think the author had access to visual data about the ocean floor at the time of the making of his earliest maps. And I have read accounts about scientists who found standing stone architecture on hillsides in very deep water about 400 miles west of Portugal, as well as other discoveries, including one recently, soon to be the subject of a National Geographic special, half a mile below the surface off the coast of Cuba. Check back at rilopost.com for Part 2, Numenor Atlantis, and Part 3, the geology. Thank you.